I think so. I don't know if you remember last fall, there was a water leak. It happened up in the third floor, and it came down and came into management services there. So they're replacing the carpet. At least that's what I understand.
What's happening here? I was going to tell you like when you guys are awesome. You have it already. So
Thank you. Yes. Thank you. It's Friday. Friday. So. It is. It is. Thanks. There she is.
Which ones do I care about? That's the question.
Yeah, exactly.
We all set up here, team? Ready to go? All right. Well, it's a pleasure to see all my colleagues back here after our 5 o'clock committee of the whole meeting. So here we are again for this evening, and still got a few lights left in Bronson Park, but they're diminishing. So I don't have that to gaze upon. So I will officially call this meeting to order as the Kalamazoo City Commission business meeting for Monday, February the 3rd, 2025. First order of business is roll call. Clerk Burling.
Commissioner Cooney.
Present.
Commissioner Decker.
Present.
Commissioner Hoffman.
Present.
Commissioner Pradle.
Present.
Commissioner Wilson. Vice Mayor Hess.
Present.
Mayor Anderson.
Here. Thank you, Clerk Burling. May I have a motion to excuse Commissioner Wilson from the meeting this evening?
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Mayor Hess.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Decker. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. All right, motion passes. So we are blessed this evening to have Father Robert Cregan here from the St. Augustine Chapel to get us started. I'm going to ask those of us who are here in the chambers to stand for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Father Cregan.
Holy God, we ask your blessing upon the people who have been called to lead the community in which we live and work and play. They are not only leaders, but also servants. It is a great responsibility to serve the common good of all. Remind them that no matter where we live, everyone is our neighbor, and that throughout the ages, prophets have called the leaders of the people to respect and protect the least of those among us, our children, the elderly, the poor, those who are hungry, those who have no homes, those who are ill in body, mind, or spirit, the strangers and immigrants in our midst, those who live on the margins, those who are alone, those who are forgotten. Grant them and us the wisdom and courage to know and do what is right and good and true. May they and we speak out when it is time to speak out, and to listen patiently and receptively when it is time to listen. May they and we always be guided by the spirit of community, by the spirit of justice, and by the spirit of love. This we pray in the name of all that we hold sacred and holy, all that we hold good and right and true. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank
you again. We have have the opportunity to provide a couple important proclamations this evening. And the first one is for National 211 Day. It's going to be read by Commissioner Hoffman. Is there somebody here to accept that? Please come forward now, and I'll come meet you down at the...
Good evening and welcome. National 211 Day, Kalamazoo, February 11th, 2025. Whereas every hour of every day, someone in the United States needs essential services from basic human needs to securing adequate care for a child or aging parent. And whereas 211 is the national abbreviated dialing code for free access to health and human services, information and referral, volunteer opportunities, and improving the way in which people learn about and connect with the services they need. And whereas Griffin Place, a nonprofit organization established in 1970, provides 211 services 24/7, 365 days a year, accessible to everyone. 211 provides services via call, chat, or text. All contact to 211 is and answered with respect, empathy, compassion, and whereas Griffin Place serves the Kalamazoo community through a variety of programs and services, including 988, suicide prevention and crisis support services, restorative practices, 211 information and referral services, youth services, and a numerous community initiatives. And whereas Griffin Place 211 is a leader in suicide prevention in the area. Griffin Place staff are expertly trained in suicide prevention and are fully certified by the American Association of Suicidology. And whereas Griffin Place 211 online database provides information and the right connections with 750 agencies and over 2,700 programs. Over 130,000 contacts are handled annually through 211 service connections. And whereas 211 serves as a support system for emergency management to help disseminate critical information, assist people through disasters, and provide a long-term connection to relief and recovery services. Now, therefore, on behalf of the 55th City Commission, I, Stephanie Hoffman, and our Mayor, David F. Anderson of the City of Kalamazoo, proclaim February 11, 2025 to be National 211 Day in Kalamazoo and commend Griffin Place and volunteers for their continued commitment to the Kalamazoo region.
Thank you very much. I mean, you said it all, so thank you. And I have the honor of the proclamation for Wear Red Day on February 7th, when I will be wearing red. This is a proclamation for Wear Red Day, February 7th, 2025. Whereas cardiovascular diseases are the #1 killer of women in the U.S., killing more women than all forms of cancer combined, and cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of maternal death in the U.S., or more simply put, heart disease is the #1 killer of new moms. And whereas cardiovascular diseases kill one woman almost every 80 seconds in the U.S., and whereas heart disease and stroke can affect all women at any age, while new research showing a rise in heart attacks in younger women, and whereas individuals in the U.S. have made great progress in reducing the death rate for cardiovascular disease, but this progress has been more modest with respect to the death rate for cardiovascular disease in women. And whereas about 80% of cardiac events can be prevented through education and lifestyle changes, and whereas all women are encouraged to move more, eat smart, and manage blood pressure to reduce their risk of cardiovascular disease, and whereas the American Heart Association's Go Red for Women movement motivates women to learn their family history and to meet with a healthcare provider to determine their risk for cardiovascular diseases and stroke, And whereas Go Red for Women empowers women to get healthy through Watch Me Go Red campaign designed to engage women to show others what they do to experience good health and well-being while inspiring others to do the same. Now, therefore, on behalf of the 55th City Commission and Mayor David F. Anderson, in recognition of the importance of the ongoing fight against heart disease and stroke, I, Vice Mayor Jean Hess, do hereby proclaim Friday, February 7th, 2025, to be National Wear Red Day in the city of Kalamazoo, and urge all citizens to show their support for women and the fight against heart disease by commemorating this day by wearing the color red. By increasing awareness, speaking out against heart disease, and empowering women to reduce their risk for cardiovascular diseases, we can save thousands of lives each year. Thank you, Caleb, for being here.
Thank you so much. The AHA is so excited to celebrate the first American Heart Month of our second century. We thank you for the city's partnership and sharing our incredible mission for longer, healthier lives for everyone. And it's an honor to accept this proclamation. Thank you.
It's always great to have the opportunity to recognize some of the fantastic work that people are doing here in our community. Next is the adoption of the formal agenda. Commissioners, are there any items that are on the consent agenda, G, that you would like to have moved to the regular agenda, H? All right, seeing none, the agenda stands. Next, communications. Manager Ritzma.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Thank you. Now is the opportunity for public comments. Just as a reminder, this isn't an opportunity for dialogue, but an opportunity for anyone here in the chambers to provide their comments here to the City Commission. You'll have 4 minutes. Please state your name and whether you live in the city. You can come forward now. You can sign in afterwards if you'd like.
Hello, I'm Ryan Smith. I'm a resident of the Edison Neighborhood Association, and I run a mutual aid group that serves our unhoused every Friday. And, you know, I do want to say that the funding for the recent hotel stay for at least 120 unhoused individuals is a good thing, but I do worry that, you know, this weather isn't letting up anytime soon. We're going to be going from cold to hot, and people, you know, it's hard to stay dry and cold or warm if you're wet outside. Recently, at my last Friday I was at, I had somebody that was in so much pain and they couldn't feel their feet at all. And luckily for us, we had extra pairs of socks, we had some foot warmers, but we had to sit him down, take off his boots, and, you know, we had to help him out. And there's no way he probably would have, you know, ever felt his foot again if we weren't there, you know. And moments like that stick out to me, is that we're just small individuals and we're making an impact where we can. And the thing is, we have resources here that I feel like we could be using to keep, you know, keep pushing this issue forward. I appreciate the township buying the hotel for a shelter, but, you know, again, we need to keep funding programs. We need to be standing up in the state. You know, when Trump is in power and, you know, things could get worse, you know, he's already proven that he would like to cut funds for any type of social program that helps people out that are poor. So, you know, I just really hope the city and all the city commissioners can, you know, keep striding forward. The hotel project was great, but we need to keep pushing forward and helping people out, because, you know, it's only going to get worse. The weather is not going to get better anytime soon. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello. Back again, I'm Angela. I'm currently unhoused as well. I'm out here advocating for everybody that needs an advocator, apparently. A lot of the things that I'm worried about right now is the fact that I was in some situations myself, and this recent last week where, you know, the homeless people are assaulting homeless people, and then you call the police and the police don't show up. So, I mean, like with having no disciplinary action upon the people that are actually out there doing the things that they shouldn't be doing. I mean, the police said, "you people," to me, and never even came. And I was actually assaulted by one of the members from the drop-in, not members, but the security guards. I mean, there's just a lot of things, that loopholes that people are slipping through. I mean, they don't think that we see. It is whatever it is. Another thing I want to talk about is Judy. She has been requesting a lot of, when she was in the hotel, she was requesting a lot of needs. That for somebody that has the people and the funding that she has to still be asking for help, 39 rolls of paper towels do not need to go to 29 unhoused people that are in a hotel. It doesn't make any sense to me. I feel like she could be utilizing that money in another way, and I've had numerous complaints from a lot of the people that are saying that they can't really find a way to get a hold of her. She picks and chooses. I believe that that money could be utilized in a different way or by a different person in the right way. Another thing is that I was just recently at the Mission having dinner, and they gave me a plate, which nobody could ever hide any fat with that. I had 4 tiny chicken bites and 1 scoop of broccoli. And a lot of it is because the volunteers, the workers that are in there, they're all volunteering, obviously, but like they don't take enough time to understand that there is a 2,000 calorie diet that at least people have to keep up on to be able to keep burning the fat, to even keep going out here. We had a woman freeze to death in a car. You know, there's just things, I mean, like the gun violence, all these things are going really wrong, and all goes hand in hand with mental health. I mean, it's freezing cold out there. I mean, once you get wet, it's over with. And thank goodness for some of our local organizations that do come through. I think that a lot more resources need to be utilized in a way where people know that they're there. I don't think that we take enough time as people to even care about the next person, let alone be able to know that there's money out there. If they just would commit, there's no hope behind anything that these people are doing. They're comfortable where they are. They've been doing it for a long time, because every single time they go into a social worker office or anything like that, all they get is the same old answer. They'll get their hopes up, and then maybe they can't follow through. Maybe they need further services to be able to follow through behavioral health. You know, those little things that we need to connect those two together, and we just need to bridge these gaps between the authorities, between the people out here, between the way that things are running, as far as there's no education for social admission. Like, there's really not. And after being outside for so long, there's a way of life, and everybody's always at everybody's throats. You know, there's no, I mean, like, just anything that would give hope to somebody or bridge a gap between an authority figure to a person that is not, you know, that would make so much difference, give so much hope, and maybe change one life. You know, if it changes one life, that's all I really care about. You know, and then just be a leader to the next person and the next person and the next person. So I'm out there trying to give positive affirmations, and I'm going through it myself, you know. So, like, hopefully I can still bring all my patrons out here, keep getting them coming back out here, because without me telling you guys, or them coming out here and having a voice, no, you guys won't know. You know, you guys are busy. I understand. But the housing crisis is getting to be a lot. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Commissioners, I've been a little under the weather lately, so I haven't, you know, been as present as I normally would be. But you know, it hasn't gone unnoticed, some of the things that you guys have done. So I know you guys do receive a lot of criticism, but you got to get some praise too. You know, and I appreciate those efforts. What I want to kind of expand upon is that the danger that is present every day at our bus station. Okay? I mean, it's a real thing, and a lot of us really need the sheriff department back down there from 6 a.m. until buses stop running again. You know, so it'll be safer. I don't need to tell you guys what's been happening lately. And, you know, it's, you know, there's a lot of problems. It's not just homelessness. You know, that's just one of many. You know, we still have the environmental issue that seems to be forgotten, but, you know, graphic packaging and stuff, that was a real thing. There were days where you were actually told to stay inside. Mm-hmm. You know, I've lived here all my life, you know, that never happened. So, you know, these are, you know, the PFAS, you know. I mean, I wonder how that impacted my aunt dying, you know. We'll never know now, you know. So these are some real things that I do think need to be addressed. I also want to revisit the electrical outlets, because that's a key. That's something that wouldn't really harm you guys in any way. But if someone can charge their phone, they can call 911 too when they're in trouble, can't they? You know. We owe people at least that, you know, and maybe some of the areas could be designated where people can go, you know, get their phone charged, you know. It's, you know, some of you have been out there in the thick of it and have witnessed yourself how it really is, you know, and it's a gut-wrenching thing because, you know, you can help people, but only to a point. A lot of people are dealing with mental challenges on top of disabilities. You know, don't even add addiction into it. And this is who you're trying to reason with? This is who is supposed to pull themselves up out of this? Come on, man. That's not fair. That's not reasonable. And we can do better. And you guys, like I say, I was in the hospital and I was noticing some things that you guys have been doing, and you know, and I appreciate it, you know, because a lot of the lives that have been lost, you know, these are people that I knew personally, only because I made it a point to get to know them, you know. I never used to, you know, come down here, you know, just drive by like everyone else. But I just wanted to say that, and if you guys would, it also, I think there's a little bit of, people need a little more information about how some certain funds how they can access them, you know, as far as vouchers, maybe rooms. I know there's been a lot of questions about that. So if you guys could, you know, revisit that too, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hi, my name is Shauna Espinoza, and I'm a resident. I noticed that there might be a shelter being built. Is this going to be the same thing as the pods? It's kind of like a smoke screen, like y'all dangle something in front of their face and then take it away because so many different reasons. But we need this more now than ever. We need a 24-hour shelter now, not later. We're hoping that this is something that can be done before next winter, before even summertime. But we need things that you guys say that you're gonna do. We need you to follow through and actually do it. Don't push it off. Don't find different reasons. Actually come out in the community and see what they really need, because the situation with the pods, that could have been something that could have been used years ago for the winter. We wouldn't be having people out here freezing. We wouldn't have people out here wet and cold and losing limbs and getting sick. But there's so many things that has been offered but not followed through with for many various reasons. But this is something that is a need. Having a home or a place to stay dry and warm and feel safe, that's a human basic right, a need. There are so many people out here on the street that just need some type of safety, something to keep them warm, something to keep them housed. There are so many people that out here that just need little basic things that we take for granted. Being able to go somewhere and be safe. These streets are not safe in any type of way possible. Between among themselves, those that are already out there, and even our law enforcement. What are you guys going to do to protect us from the administration that is in place as of right now? Because I know for me, I have no faith in this commission at all that will make sure to stand up to that administration and make sure that the services and the funding that is already here is going to stay. So I'm asking y'all to stand up and be the commission that we know that you all can be. Come out and meet with those that have already out here and do the work. We need security to know that our most vulnerable population is going to be okay the next 4 years and beyond. These are things that should have been thought of way before, because we knew this was a possibility. Because I have children, and I know I would never want them out on the street. But if I had to, that's something that I would have to do. But at the same time, I would expect y'all to make sure that there's a safety net so these things don't happen. There should be something in place. So if somebody's going through an eviction or finna be out on the street, there's something that catches them before they're out on the street. I don't think any child should be out on the street. Our veterans should not be out on our street. Our disabled, our seniors should not be out on the street. There's so many health things going on within this community that you can't get certain basic needs when you're out on the street, even when you're being housed. So just take in consideration that small basic needs that we take for granted, they need. So please come out, meet, talk, and see what's really needed. And follow through with the things that need to be done. Make sure that each of y'all are holding yourselves accountable and making sure these things are taken care of and done. Because you guys are supposed to be our elected leaders. And just remember that the election year is this year. So if we don't see that you guys are following through and being leaders that we know y'all will be, there's other people that will take that place and do the things that should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening, commissioners. I was here last week kind of talking about the mutual aid efforts. Great to see Ryan come out. He's fantastic, does an excellent job for members of our houseless community. My name is Jeremy Herman, and last time I was here, I said the time to do radical things with money is now. Again, I see promotions of We Are a Happy City. I see these things that, they're initiatives in the city that are meant for people like me, people who already have a home, people who already have a steady job. And when we talk about the design of the city, when we talk about parks of the city, we just had a homeless encampment in Bronson Park. So whatever green spaces, whatever businesses that are going to happen in the future, if we don't solve the issues of houselessness, it's going to continue. And the city has a great opportunity to actually promote coalition building, to promote open forums, to hear the issues of the residents. And that is not being promoted. We feel invisible when we are talking to individuals out on these streets who are asking for tents, who are asking for boots. We have an Excel spreadsheet of all these specific needs that have been documented. And my hope is that these public comments strike a chord with people. Last time I was up here, I was very angry, but I am pleading with you to consider how when you guys are promoting stuff online and programs, it does not equate to the realities of Kalamazoo right now. It doesn't. And as Ryan touched base on, the current administration is going to be cutting federal funding to a lot of our nonprofits in this area who have been doing great work. And we need to see a city that is going to be reactive to those needs and the people, and we would love to have those discussions with you. Nobody's asked us. So until we hear from this, it's going to be crazy. And I'm going to give you an example. I spoke with Commissioner Cooney after the first time I was here to speak on the initiatives. I had a friend who had a homeless person in their attached garage. And they didn't want to call the police because they were afraid the police would hurt that individual. That's the level of trust in law enforcement right now. And they had a space heater within this garage because they were cold. And I was trying to navigate and find out ways that we could get this person a tent, that we could get this person potentially in one of the motels. And it was too late. The small fire had started, the person went off. But whatever issues like that have been brought to light in this, like cold, below zero weather, the city is not acting fast enough. And I plead you to reach out to members like Ryan, to reach out to people like myself, and start having those conversations in the rooms. There's Isaac, there's a lot of great organizations, and if we can come together and find solutions with community members, we will do so. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, please.
Good evening. Jeff Messer, city resident. We are now 2/3 of the way through meteorological winter, but Housing Resources Incorporated is planning on opening a pilot warming center 1 week from today at their new headquarters on West Crosstown Parkway at Maple Street, just down the road from the Kalamazoo Inn Motel and Channel 3. It will be open Mondays and Wednesdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Through the end of March. If this pilot project is successful, they do hope to make this a permanent warming and cooling shelter. A warming center, would be a full season, would be like November, beginning of November to the end of March, and then I don't know what the period would be for a summer shelter. So again, 1 week from today, Housing Resources Incorporated on West Crosstown Parkway at Maple Street will be open Mondays and Wednesdays from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. through the end of March. I'm currently lacking on details on what they're going to be offering. I'm guessing they're going to be offering at least food. When I get more details, I will hopefully maybe the city or somebody else will post it. But when I get word, I will post it to the Kalamazoo Street News group on Facebook. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
On the pictures, I wrote on the back, "Hi everyone, my name is Tina. I live on Lake Street. I've lived in my home for 38 years. I've been coming to the city commission meetings for 7 years now, asking you to save our last natural green space in Southtown neighborhood. It runs from Stockbridge to Lake. Our whole neighborhood floods. This green space is so important to us, our wildlife, what helps us from flooding worse than we already do. This is a swampy area and lots of bats call this home. Lots of wildlife. This space is our savior, helps our homes from flooding in the whole neighborhood. Friday, January 31st, it rained 1.38 inches. That's it. 1.38 inches. The storm drain started flooding the streets. 1.38 inches. Come on, that's not that much rain. All of your neighborhoods probably could take 1.38 inches and your storm drains don't flood. But, my pictures will show you crosstown ponds. It will show you now more pumping water in the first pond at Crosstown Parkway and Stockbridge. Shouldn't you be pumping water out and not pumping more water in? The truck is sitting by the little building there, but the tank that's behind the building is the one pumping more water in an already flooded area. Are you purposely trying to make the ponds flood? Why would you add more water to an already flooding area? It's very mentally stressful to hear it's going to rain. Then you wonder, worry, am I going to be able to get home? And once I get home, am I going to be able to get back out? Because your storm drains flood the streets. Something's wrong with the neighborhood because your storm drains should not flood the streets. And when we flood in the wintertime, it takes out our furnace. So we have to deal without a furnace until we can get another one put in. And they're not cheap. I surely would like to know why the city is pumping more water in crosstown ponds. They used to pump it across the street. Now they're pumping it right in front of the pond, where it's already up to the top. So you're just going to cause more flooding when it rains again. And you need to bring back public call-ins. Some people can't make it here. Some people can't drive. Some people are seniors. They have problems too that they'd like to bring their concerns to you. And now on to another subject. Did you know during that cold weather, some people froze to death? They were out there at 25 below zero, had nowhere to go. You only put up some people. You didn't put up everybody. I wouldn't want to be out there at 25 below zero. I didn't want to go to work, but I had to. It's ridiculous. Rent is so high, people can't afford to live in Kalamazoo. I mean, I work 2 jobs, and I still struggle. I work 60 hours a week, and at 63 years old, that's kind of hard. And then I take the time to come out to all these meetings. But you got to do something, Kalamazoo. We can do better. I know some families at my school that are homeless. It's happening all over the place. We have little children that are homeless. There's a lot of homeless kids in Kalamazoo Public Schools. A lot of them. Oh, and by the way, your book library, awful. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please.
Hello all, Drew Duncan, again, Kalamazoo resident. I'm coming back again this week to extend the invite again. So this past weekend, I took the opportunity to go down to South Bend do we call it testifying when you're here? Testified last week. But I was able to talk to the executive director, Kathy Shute of Motels for Now, which will soon be the new day intake center. The city's council voted 9-0 to approve and expand this. And I just wanted to use some of this time to read off a couple stats. One, today, I was very alarmed to read an article that we have some 1,800 plus students, not adults, we're talking students, in our city that are experiencing housing instability or homelessness. That's alarming. But looking at this facility, we know since its inception in 2020, 770 plus people have come through its doors. We know that 360 plus of those individuals have enrolled and graduated from some type of substance abuse program. And we know that 77% of those people go on to be stably housed. So this is a program that works, that performs, that is solving a great amount of the problems concerning the unhoused at a neighbor that is less than 70 miles from us. Last week, I said that this is not a city that lacks empathy. I deeply believe that. But I also deeply believe we are a city that lacks imagination. So again, I'm at the podium. I'm extending the invite to anyone on this commission that would like to attend. I've had the auxiliary conversations already. They're just waiting on us. So I would love to charter a few of you down there to see. I know that the county has purchased a building here in hopes to create a shelter. I think before we open that and move forward with that, we should look at best practices. So I think this is an opportunity for us to learn from our neighbors and get the best practice before we open it. There have been some things with Motels for Now that were not great, right? They plopped it right into a residential neighborhood. I think we've already avoided that. One of the things that when they bought the hotel, or they're on a lease, right? So they don't actually own the property. So I think 1/3 of the funding that comes in right now is going to rent. So that 770 plus some could have been even more on a model that we're going to do better, right? So I also know and believe that this is a place full of people who have philanthropic hearts. We see the giving all over Kalamazoo. So I would hope that with this installation of a low barrier, no barrier housing, that it would come with a stipulation that in several years' time that it would be self-sustaining, something that would not require funding from the city. Again, I repeat, and I deeply believe that the city cannot be in the business of housing the unhoused forever. But we should, as a government and elected people, be working to provide something more than four walls between the people who are unhoused in nature. That gives them a future to believe in. That gives them a Kalamazoo that they belong to. That's why I use the unhoused term pretty intentionally, because Kalamazoo is all of our homes. Whether you have a roof over your head or not, if you live here, you're a part of the citizenry, right? So again, I put up this invitation to the commission and anybody who would like to attend. That pulls the levers of power. But I do think that this is a program that works. It was started with plenty of imagination, and I think that we can do that here. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, please. Seeing no one else, I want to thank everybody who took the time and made the effort to come down here to provide us with their thoughts and comments. Now we are on to the consent agenda. Manager Ritzma.
We have 3 items this evening. First is the approval of a contract with Santiago Services for mowing and trimming of city parks and greenscapes in the amount of $175,280. Next, the approval of a budget allocation from the City Commission Initiatives Fund in the amount of $49,475 for water affordability advertising, and approval of a budget amendment to carry forward funds from 2024 to 2025 for this allocation. And finally, authorization for the city attorney to settle a sewer backup claim with Iglesias Evangelica Missionera related to the property at 551 Phelps Ave in the amount of $34,810.85.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Commissioners, the requested action is a motion to approve items 1 through 3 and authorize the city manager to sign all related documents on behalf of the city. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Hoffman.
Support.
Supported by Commissioner Decker. Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Commissioner Hoffman. Yes. Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The items on the consent agenda are approved. Now on to our regular agenda. Manager Ritzma.
Item H1 is approval of a professional service agreement with Jones & Henry Engineers, Ltd. for Kalamazoo Sustainable Biosolids Alternatives Phase 3 in the amount of $12,375,000.
Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Is there a staff report on this item?
Yes, Director Baker, our Public Services Director, will be giving a brief presentation on this.
Welcome, Director Baker. Good to see you.
Good evening, Your Honor. Thank you, City Manager, Attorney Leal, City Commissioners. Thank you very much for taking the time tonight. So we wanted to just provide a brief overview on, kind of what are we talking about here and what our recommendation is going forward.
Yep.
I think I got it. So first of all, what are biosolids? I'm sure not all of us know what this term refers to or means. The term biosolids relates to the solid material that is left over during the wastewater treatment process at the Kalamazoo Water Reclamation Plant. Every day we receive about 27 million gallons of water through our connected sewer system. We process that clean water and discharge via permit to the Kalamazoo River. The water that we discharge to the Kalamazoo River is actually cleaner than the river itself. We then have a separate process, which we refer to as our biosolids process, that has to be treated and managed as well. Currently, we're taking those solids to the landfill. And we're taking about 200 wet tons a day to the landfill at a cost of over $13 million a year. Now, this has been something that we've been talking about quite extensively during our budget work sessions and rate recommendations sessions and recommendations to the City Commission. The single point driving rates today on your water bill is this issue with sludge. And that will continue to be for some years into the future. We know that unlike some other communities, the Kalamazoo's biosolids cannot be applied to farm fields. There's reasons for that. Some communities do have that ability, but that would remain a concern for Kalamazoo. So $13 million a year, over 200 tons a day. This is a process currently that utilizes a wet material. We're storing, we're managing, we're treating, and we're hauling a wet material every day at the Kalamazoo Water Reclamation Plant at a cost of over $13.5 million a year. So going back a few years, we submitted an RFI. That is a request for information where we sought out different technologies to employ and bring forward to Kalamazoo. The RFI was very successful in that we had over 27 different vendors respond with over 30 different solutions. So some vendors submitted more than one solution. We then created a group of stakeholders. We called that our good governance team. These folks were multidisciplinary and diverse in terms of their background. Some of those folks are leaders here in the community, in the city. Some of those would be city staff, allied to public services. For example, we had folks from public safety. We had folks from our DE&I office. And we had folks from city managers and finance office as city staff reviewing these technologies. We also had our partners in industry throughout our service district, folks such as technicians and scientists from Pfizer. We had folks from the townships, and we had some township supervisors that are, kind of all part of our team. That team all worked together to identify those 27 different technologies and kind of narrow the field. As we worked to narrow the field, we looked at not just cost, but other factors as well, in things like being able to deal with emerging contaminants, greenhouse gases, that sort of thing. At the end of last year's scoring conference, we had kind of 3 technologies we wanted to get a deeper dive into. We then tasked our engineers to go do some additional research, and then we had an additional scoring, a scoring conference to review those technologies. That scoring conference was held just recently here in November of 2024. So when I was saying last year, I meant 2023. Fast forward to this year, 2024, that's in November when we had that scoring conference. So again, we're taking a deeper dive into those 3 technologies. We've got a diverse project team that's really going into the fine details of cost, greenhouse gas, odor generation, PFAS destruction, and really trying to take a very detailed analytic approach to the recommendation for what would be the future of biosolids in Kalamazoo. As these are some of the slides that we looked at, these are some real cost comparisons of different technologies and how they would stack up. I do want to note on the far right is the big blue chart. And this is, there's few times in engineering where do nothing is the most costly approach. So if we were to stop all of this work and not move forward with any kind of recommendation. And if we were to continue to do what we were doing today, that is the most costly. That is going to cost our citizens the most. And as you see here, as we go through these slides, it also creates the most odor potential. It's also the largest carbon footprint. It doesn't deal with contaminants of emerging concern. And overall, regardless of which way you slice it, our do-nothing approach that we're doing right now is not recommended for the future. The consensus that the team has kind of coalesced around, really is a best approach utilizing heat drying and thermal oxidation. You've got kind of a one-pager up on the dais in front of you that talks about that. This, really kind of takes the material and dries it. Once it's dried to about 75% solids, it then goes into a thermal oxidation process. The heat from that process is recycled and reused between drying and that thermal oxidation process. And so that's kind of a closed loop process. The product, now 98% dry material, would then be hauled out or sought for some beneficial use. So it's a big transition from where we're at today, where we store, process, manage, transport, and landfill a wet material, and it takes us to where we store, process, manage, and haul a dry material. And it does so in a way that's respective of the neighborhood, respective of odors, respective of carbon emissions, and respective of greenhouse gas emissions, and with respect to our current process, is heads and shoulders above everything that we're doing today. Some next steps, we did submit back in October an intent to apply for a Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund with Eagle. We are currently on track to meet that goal. We're going to be planning a public meeting in March to engage with the community, very similar to what we're presenting today, kind of the process of how we step through to select this process and how we plan to move that forward. We plan to submit that loan application to Eagle via the Clean Water State Revolving Loan Fund project plan submittal in April, the end of April, April 30th. We'll find out if we're funded, if we're in the fundable range in September. And if we are funded, we would propose to move forward with fourth quarter funding, which would put us in construction from 2026 through 2030. A few more comments that I have for you. The 2025 wastewater rate report that came to you in part of your rate recommendations, that rate report supports this project plan. That rate report supports us doing this work and investing this capital into this project. And through that rate report, you would see that if we were successful in implementing this project, that first year that we become operational would anticipate a rate holiday for that year, meaning that it's anticipated that there would not be a rate increase the first year that we implement this process. So that being said, I'll open the floor for discussion with the commissioners. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Director Baker. Really, really appreciate it. Description of all the effort that's gone into this is phenomenal. The broad input, I think, is really impressive. And taking all this work and turning it into some charts that are actually very accessible to the layperson is very, very helpful. So thanks so much. Relative to all that, questions, commissioners? Commissioner Prado.
Director Baker, just one question. There's a line here that says air exhausted by the thermal oxidation process is scrubbed extensively to meet strict emission standards. What gives that confidence through the due diligence in this process to make you feel confident that that would be the case?
Sure, certainly. Some great questions there. This process, and this is why we've got the great engineering team that we're making the recommendation tonight to move forward with this design. Part of this design is going to include emissions after treatment that will be permitted with Eagle. Throughout the preliminary investigation. We've contacted with an expert at a local university that is actually a PhD research scientist that studies emission systems for processes and things like that. We stopped short of going through the full build out of what that was during our preliminary work because just the testing alone is over $1 million for that. That being said, this process will employ technology that's typical to automotive, in that there would be a selective catalytic reduction on the device and after treatment scrubbing on the device as well. So not too different from like your automobile and your catalytic converter. Those devices would be on the system as well. And the intent is that regardless of where we come in terms of the emissions of the process, in its stoichiotic state, so in its natural state, we're going to scrub that and clean that up so that there is no emissions out to the community.
It's pretty impressive too. It says here the before drying biosolids are approximately 75% water and afterwards 8% water. That's impressive.
It's a big change too. And the other really big change is that, to put this in perspective, 200 tons a day, that's about 20 city dump trucks where that material is wet and is hauled around your neighborhoods here in Kalamazoo. So there's a big impact to that. And this project is going to stop that action. So, we're really excited. We're really looking forward to the day where we're not hauling sludge trucks through Kalamazoo anymore in the future.
It's a big deal. And I apologize. I was trying to read through this while I was listening to as well, but can you just share again, timeline-wise, what you perceive as like the likely go online timeline for this if we were to proceed with it?
Sure. If everything goes according to plan in terms of we're successful with our funding application and we're able to hit the ground running with our fourth quarter engineering and project implementation, we would see construction in 2026 starting, and then we would be anticipating completion with construction in 2030 and then operational either in 2030 or 2031. That's still a little bit out yet to really nail down.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Hess?
Sure. Thank you, Director Baker, and thanks to all the people who have been in the process so far. I love the engagement you've had. What kind of footprint are we talking about for this? Is it a new facility, and what kind of footprint would it be?
Yeah, this would be a new facility at our current Kalamazoo Water Reclamation Plant footprint. So if you've ever been to the KWRP, you'll notice that just north of our current admin building, there is some green space speckled with some remnants of some old processes that kind of goes from that parking lot to the north. So it would occupy the space that was originally occupied by some of the original components of the treatment plant. The plant then kind of grew around it. So it would infill current space at the KWRP.
Cool, thank you. Just another question. During your presentation, you said that our biosolids weren't suitable for agricultural application. Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Sure. Right now, agricultural use of biosolids. So you take a biosolids, put it on the farm fields. There are grow restrictions to that. Most of those would be you can't plant a food crop within 36 months of biosolids application. And then there's EPA 503 metals, which is a list of metals that are checked. And then there's what they call vector attraction, which would be reduction of bacteria like coliform group bacteria and E. coli bacteria that we'd have to test to make sure that we meet all of those parameters. That's just simply not enough testing with respect to the work that we do here in Kalamazoo. We in all that, we didn't identify any toxics, any of the organic chemistries, any of the total toxic organics. There's list of materials that were just plain not checking for, and including PFAS. There are new regulations now for PFAS. For over 20 parts per trillion, we can't apply to those farm fields. But, as we've learned in Kalamazoo, things may be fine today, and then next Monday, they're not fine. And if we've learned anything through our struggles with lead and through our struggles with PFAS as a community, we have really worked hard in Kalamazoo and with the folks at the KWRP, including our new sewer use ordinance, to make sure that we are not going to do anything today that's going to put the future in harm's way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Yes, Commissioner Decker.
Thank you, Mayor. I think Director Baker, how are you?
Doing great, thank you.
Just a couple quick questions. So what is because I'm reading some of the information that you gave us. We have a rate reduction of material that's going to be deposed once we implement this. If we implement this, is it going to be 98%? What is our weight reduction now? Is that going to be increasing?
So could you repeat that? The weight reduction?
Yeah, the total weight reduction of material to be disposed of.
So right now, we're hauling 200 wet tons a day. And that material has about 23%, it's about 23% dry. So we're going to go from 23% dry to 98% dry.
Okay.
So it's going to be a major reduction in weight. So we're going to go from, 200 tons a day going to the landfill to something more like 6 tons a day to the landfill. So it's going to be a huge reduction. Over 98% reduction in weight.
That's awesome. And then I also noticed in here, as we move forward into 2025, so our current contract is up in 2025. When is that contract up for the hauling of the biodiesel, of the waste? And do we have anything in place to combat that? Because I see you say you don't know if it's going to be renewed. What have we talked about if they don't renew our contract?
Yeah, so that's a good questions, good points, good follow through on those aspects. So we're paying $13.5 million a year right now under our current contract. This, as fast as we go, is not going to be built until 2030, and we're moving really fast. In fact, this action tonight is something of an accelerated project delivery timeline because we're pulling engineering out ahead of knowing whether or not we got the finance. This work that is up for a vote tonight is eligible for those grant dollars if we get those grant dollars, but we need to be able to execute on the work, able to execute on the project. That being said, even recognizing that we are moving as fast as we are going to have to go back out to bid, or we're going to have to ask for an extension with our current landfill contractor, which is Waste Management. So, we do have some meetings and some check-ins planned with them. We have been in communication, with those folks. So, they know that we're, moving towards a solution, and we're going to be working with them, to continue that relationship, to continue a contract to keep us moving into the future.
Thank you for that. And, I'm just going to say that, with a lot of things that have been brought forward, this is also, you and your team being great stewards, again, of the fundings that you're going to be getting, hopefully getting and currently have right now, and also looking at the life cycle of an asset that the city manages and being able to look forward and be like, okay, let's proactively think what could happen in 10, 20, 30 years. So thank you for being proactive and kind of thinking, asset-wise, and how you can make sure that this runs for years and years to come. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Hoffman?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Director, for being here. I see this is for Phase 3. My first question is how many phases, and what is the total cost?
So let me hit the total cost first, if I may, Commissioner Hoffman. So the recommended action tonight is for the design engineering. There's some other aspects of that include the loan application, putting together the project plan. The actual construction cost, we are in the range of $130 million. So that is in addition to what you have in front of you today. So that is the other big process. That's the ultimate. What we're looking at, 130 to 150 million dollar range on that. We're going to get some better estimates as we put together that project plan. So one of the points of that March 18th meeting is that we have to have a number that we're able to communicate to the community of what this project does cost or will cost in terms of what our engineer estimates are at that time.
Okay, and then I saw on some of the engineers' opinions on the cons is that it's a high capital cost. And then when it comes to the maintenance. So is there anything that you are trying to anticipate to make sure that that's a huge investment, right? That those things that may come up as maintenance issues, like is there something that can be put in place to help defer some of that cost as well?
Yeah, that's those are great points. I will tell you that the engineers have been looking at that, and that's part of the iterations that they're working through right now is some of that redundancy and some of that reliability. So we could build just the one unit, and that one unit is going to be kind of run at 100% speed 100% of the time. It's going to have to work really hard, and if it ever breaks down, it's going to be a big emergency. So we're looking at ways to have more units to better meet our daily needs, so that we're not really kind of overloading the units from a daily basis, and that we've got the backup and the reliability there. So that's a lot of the work that the engineers are currently working on to, think of it like a car, so to speak. If you needed a car and you were going to drive, say, 200 miles per day, maybe you should have a backup, and maybe you could balance, instead of 200 miles a day on one car, 100 miles on each car. So they're kind of playing those games from reliability and redundancy perspective, and trying to come in kind of a sweet spot to where we don't have too many units, but we've got enough units to where we're going to be able to load those units respectfully and not overload them, and that when we do have planned maintenance, we're able to take them out of service. The other big aspect of that is being very proactive with preventative maintenance, predictive maintenance, and planned maintenance, so that we know when it's time to take a unit out of service, and that we're doing the proper repairs on that unit, and then we're putting it back in service. And so the engineers that's also part of kind of their work to make sure that we've got the redundancy to be able to take a unit offline when it's planned. Hey, next month that unit goes offline. Let's stay on schedule and stay on plan, so that we can get that unit cleaned out in service and then put back into service.
And one more question, which maybe you might have answered it already, but in this process, how quick and efficient is this new product? In time, with time? Is it going to cut back on time that the drivers and everybody else is taking everything? Is it going to become more efficient?
So in terms of, it's a higher technology. There will be more staff required for this process. So it is, in some respects, not comparable to what we do today, because we're kind of, what we do today, we go through a centrifuge, and then it literally gets piled on the floor, and then we're done with it. And so with what's proposed in front of you here today, it's going to go through a centrifuge, and then through a dryer, and then through an energy recovery system, a thermal oxidation system, then to dry storage. So we're adding all these process steps in there that they don't exist today. And that will require additional staffing. And we talked about the maintenance aspect of it. That will require additional maintenance. But even with those aspects in play, the process overall, if this works for me here, it's going to back up, Scott, to the bar charts with cost. So even if you see the selected process, the recommended process is dryer with ERS. So it's the second one in with a kind of rather large capital cost, and then a fair recurring annual cost. If you compare that to where we are today, it's still almost half of what we are today. So we do realize a savings when we're not paying the $13 million a year to go to landfill. We're just going to, a lot of those funds are going to get redirected to the capital cost, and then also to, the O&M aspects of maintaining that equipment. Thank you.
Good questions, Commissioner Hoffman. I appreciate that. Commissioner Pradel?
Director Baker, I had one other question for you. It says as part of this Phase 3 with J&H, it says part of their work will be updating existing funding documents, but it also says while seeking additional funding opportunities. Can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, do you envision there being funding opportunities or entities or that may want to support this work?
Certainly, we shared on the slides the plan of us submitting to CWSRF. That's kind of in the state of Michigan. That's the one-stop shop to kind of put all your applications in together, and that covers state art funding, that covers state BIL funding, that covers state water funding. So there's all sorts of revolving funding that comes up with. We're also looking at what federal funding is available, including WIFIA. How could this project potentially time with WIFIA? And then are there any other options available? I know in speaking with our engineering team, Jones and Henry has hired a funding specialist that specializes in funding. There's also a plan to communicate with our lobbyists and to have our engineer communicate with our lobbyists as well to try to get this project, really highlighted in the state of Michigan in terms of the good work that it's doing for Kalamazoo and all the community that this supports. So there's a lot there with funding, not just that application, following that application through, including the lobbyists, and then also, in addition to that, looking for some other resources that may be out there.
So you really have that resident expert within Jones and Henry that really knows all the different levers to pull, if you will, to try to look for funding opportunities.
Correct. Again, that individual connected with our lobbyists here at the city is going to be, another great resource to really help to make sure we're carrying this as far as we can in Lansing and possibly even further.
Thank you.
Other questions, colleagues? All right, thanks so much. A great bunch of questions. I got a few for you, Director Baker, here. So just for clarification for me, you've got your odor potential, chart in here, and, several of them are low potential. The dryer and ERS, I presume, is that what you're calling the heat drying and
Correct.
The thermal oxide? Okay.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, okay. That's the second one in, yes.
Yeah. And ERS stands for?
Energy Recovery System.
Energy Recovery System, okay. So when you're using the thermal oxidation terminology, that's relative to this, the dryer and that business, okay?
Correct, yes.
Right. So relative to that, we've been putting a lot of effort into reducing odors, but all effluent that goes into the air. Is this going to help contribute to that in any way if we have this kind of system rather than storing our still only 23% dried material on site there?
Certainly, Your Honor. And we didn't have a gauge for the existing, conditions. I would say if we did, it would probably point towards the yellow in terms of where the gauge is right now. We've done a lot of work with odor investigation at the treatment plant. In fact, I believe our website is updated with some new work and research that we did together with Eagle. And through all that work, what we've learned is that at our KWRP, our biosolids process is the largest single emitter of potential odors at the KWRP. And so a lot of that deals with 200 wet tons a day of sludge that gets piled on a concrete floor in basically a pole barn with no wall, so that trucks can come up and load and and move out. So this process, dryer and ERS, again, is a fundamental change in process and really moves us away from, managing and storing and handling that wet material on our site and transitions that to a dry material. The dryer and all the odor potential that would be generated from the dryer, all that is contained and kind of that air is exchanged with the ERS system. And that's what makes the ERS system so popular, in that its ability to kind of manage odors, because we don't have just the dryer where we're drying the material and then that odor potential is released. That is kind of contained into the thermal oxidation process as well. So this is going to be yet another positive change in the right direction to help to manage odors at the KWRP.
I appreciate that. That's very important. Are there, I presume that wastewater treatment plants across the country are dealing with these similar issues that we do here. Are there other similar systems that have been constructed and are operating around the country then?
There are. There's another plant that has this proposed system out in Wisconsin, and we had staff and engineers that went on a trip, I believe last month, out there to see what that facility looks like and how that facility operates. This system is also getting permitted and built right now in Warren, Michigan. So this, if we're successful in funding and we successfully move through construction, we'll be the second Michigan facility to have this. And then there's a third Michigan facility, Wyandotte, that has this system, but they've only built half of it. They've only built the dryer system, and then they plan to partner with Warren. So they're kind of a regional partnership where Warren's got the full dryer and ERS, together. So we'll be the second in Michigan, third in Michigan, however you kind of slice the facts on that one.
All right, helpful. That's good to know. Obviously, I really appreciate it that the effort is still continuing on odor control, and even though this is addressing a different issue, it's still, we're having benefits along those lines. So that's so important for everyone here in Kalamazoo. I guess as far as this goes for now, one last question relative to this. We talked about it's a fairly large investment to build this plant. So when you're looking at some projections on what we're paying now for hauling and the fact that I'm sure, trajectory is upwards in terms of what that cost is going to be as things go on relative to the capital investment costs of building something that occurs operating it, have you arrived at any notions of, payback time maybe? Is this a 15-year, a 20-year kind of a payback? I don't know if you're contemplating that at all in terms of, just the pure ongoing expense relative to the investment and what that will be saving.
Yeah, that's a great question. Payback period is, one of the items that are often analyzed by engineers and by finance directors to really determine a project's viability to move forward. We've looked at that. There's a lot of unknowns in future costs and, capital costs and how we size this. So we're still, working through some of that. All of our preliminary estimates really have us, in the range of 10 years or less on the payback.
Wow.
And a lot of that has to do with how the sludge hauling costs are continuing to escalate. But, so are construction costs. So, I don't want to be overly pessimistic overly optimistic on construction, because we know that has been, we just got through a very difficult time with, large, heavy infrastructure investment. We're starting to recover somewhat from that. Hopefully we don't get into another scenario. There's a lot of steel in what we plan to do here. And so depending on where things go with the economy, that could create some, some unique numbers for us. Again, $13 million a year to the landfill. That's a lot of money that needs to be going in a different direction.
Right. Very helpful. I appreciate your informed responses to every question. Manager Ritzma.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. And I just want to take this opportunity to thank James and his team. I know you had these stakeholder conferences, so great to include all the stakeholders in arriving at what we have here today as a recommendation. And it also occurs to me that what we're talking about here is very similar to what we were dealing with back when with employee or retiree health insurance, where we had a huge liability and we were paying market rate for health insurance, which was just going to go through the roof. And we were able to fix our cost to a debt service payment plus our maintenance and all that. So that's really it's worked great for the OPEB liability, but I think the same is true here, where we can take those uncertainties and turn it into at least a certainty of what a debt payment will look like when it's all said and done.
Helpful. Thank you, Manager Ritzma. Any other questions, team? All right, seeing none, thank you again, Director Baker. Is there anyone here in the chambers that would like to comment on this item? If you have comments specific to this item, please come forward at this time. Seeing no one, the recommended action is a motion to approve. Does anyone like to make that motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Commissioner Pradel, supported by
Support.
Commissioner Decker. Discussion, Commissioners. Commissioner Pradel.
It's definitely a lot of money. But I think, when you put into perspective how much money is just going to a landfill, and, even if it is slightly more than 10 years as a payoff, knowing that in the long term that, it's going to reap, significant dividends financially to us by standing tall and doing this effort, I think it's well worth proceeding. I also, really like, Mayor, your questions about the impacts also on just overall air quality. That's kind of secondarily would happen from this, and that's also a win for our community. And, you have to believe also with innovation like this that there are opportunities where people, that we may be able to seek opportunities for support, funding this project. The other thing too is one of my first inclinations was just concern about investing this much money and the risks that exist if for some reason you got to the end line and it didn't work, or it didn't work as well as we had hoped or something like that. But the fact that there are other entities out there that are using this technology, the dryer and ERS technology, just does make me feel a little bit better about the risks involved with this level of investment. But there's no doubt it's a big number, but it is impressive to see the payback. I remember just in the time that both of us have been up here on commission, Director Baker, if you could just nod if I'm heading in the right direction, but the solid waste removal when we started was somewhere in the lines of like what, 3 to 5 million per year, something along those lines. Lower than 3 to 5 million a year, and now it's 15 million. So where does it go from here? So that's the other question. So it might be really good business sense right now to do this now before costs could potentially escalate even higher. So I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Commissioner Pradel. Any other discussion on this item?
Sure.
Yeah, Vice Mayor Hess.
And that the landfill has an end date. I'm sure that the landfill would probably have an end date, and we would have to do something different anyway or find a different landfill. And to continue from the ECC's perspective, to continue to fill a landfill with wet sludge is environmentally responsible. So I'll also be voting for this.
Appreciate that. Anything else? Clerk Borling, please call the roll.
Commissioner Hoffman. Yes. Commissioner Pradel.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Hess.
Yes.
Mayor Anderson.
Yes.
Commissioner Cooney. Yes. Commissioner Decker.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The motion passes. Next, reports and legislation. City Manager Ritzma.
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. A few things I want to highlight this evening. First, we had our Happy City author in town last week, Charles Montgomery, and he was a speaker at a Southwest Michigan First event on Thursday, and then we had the community meeting with him Friday evening, and I'm glad to report there were over 300 people in attendance there. And I just want to give a shout out to our DCM Rebecca Kick and our assistant or deputy CPED director Christina Anderson for really emceeing the event and doing a great discussion Q&A time afterwards. So great work there. We also have a promotion I want to highlight in our information technology department. Tuan Chestnut is being promoted to a junior system administrator. So under his new position, that'll allow him to focus on critical areas such as network engineering, system administration, and driving improvements to the city's infrastructure and applications. And also want to highlight some promotions and staff hires in public safety. We have a new emergency preparedness and resource coordinator. As you might recall, Brandy James had resigned her position here and moved to the county. We have filled that position internally with Sergeant Justin Wolbrink, and he'll be overseeing and working out of KDPS headquarters and being in charge of the emergency preparedness. Also, congratulations to Lieutenant Charles Mason and Lieutenant David Moran. Both have been promoted. Charles Mason to executive lieutenant, and he'll continue in the professional standards department. And Lieutenant Moran was promoted or transferred to the emergency management, from emergency management to the Office of Professional Standards, where he'll assist in maintaining accreditation, investigating citizen complaints, and continue to work on the public safety's strategic plan. So that's all I have this evening, Your Honor.
Thank you very much, Manager Isma. Next, we have a policy item. Back to you.
Thank you. I'd like to ask our CFO, Steve Asensi, to come forward. And we have a item in our purchasing policy that we'd like the commission to consider. And I'll turn it over to Steve for a brief presentation and then obviously discussion.
Welcome, Mr. Asensi. Good to see you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm just going to briefly talk about the item that's in front of you tonight. We're bringing this forward as a way to help streamline our purchasing process. This requested change would allow the city manager to approve routine and operational items rather than them coming forward to commission. These are items that would have to fulfill 4 different criteria. First, they would have had to been out for a sealed bid, meaning that it would have been publicly posted, open for competition from everybody in the community. It has to be within our allocated budget, so you also would have had a chance during our budget time to have seen, generally what's in our budgets and been publicly reviewed at that point as well. And then, as I already said, it has to be routine and operational, so we're looking at things like inventory, insurance policies, the day-to-day things that we deal with that keep the city running on a regular basis. And then also has to adhere to all of our regular purchasing policies. And then I would just kind of add, I looked over October through January. We had an average of 3 to 4 items per commission meeting that would have fulfilled these criteria that we could have pulled off the agenda, saved some of the time and review and gotten those items working faster. And then as an addition to this, just to make sure we're being fully transparent, we would put this forward in a city commissioner report on the agenda of the second meeting of every month. So then anything that we approved under this area of the proposed purchasing policy would be open for everyone to also see at that time too. But that's the item that's before you.
Thank you, Steve. Questions? Commissioner Pradel.
Steve, I appreciate you and the administration bringing this forward. I had a few questions just to get some clarity in case certain situations would arise. So one of them, I was just thinking about the solid waste and sludge removal, right, as a good example. So I would consider that as, potentially something that's like routine, however, as we talked about earlier, over the course of a 4 or 5 year period, those costs went from, let's just say a ballpark range of $3 to $4 million to, upwards of $12 to $15 million. Let's say there would be an expense like that where there would be some drastic shift in cost, inflationary pressure or something that happened. I mean, what would happen in a situation like that?
So it could be, one of two things. One, ideally, if we knew about the item and could plan for it, would have been allocated within the budget. Could have been considered routine operational and would have been reported just under that section of the commission agenda. If it's an item that's increasing faster than we can anticipate, you see it occasionally where a contract comes forward plus with a budget amendment of X amount. Those items automatically then have to go back on the regular agenda or on the consent agenda, one of the two.
Yeah. Just first inclination was I was thinking back, especially during like the high inflationary period. I think of like 2022, and it was like we saw just a record number of supplementals because so many things were coming in so much more than what we anticipated. Just everything from like cast iron pipe to, the sludge removal or things like that. And so I just was curious, like what would trigger something that would make administration say, hey, maybe we should like give special attention to this versus just, having it go on a report that might get overlooked. But just something I was hoping we could think about as well. The other one would be scenarios where potentially it might be the first time something becomes a routine expense. So, like a good example is the dryer and ERS technology. There's going to be maintenance things, or like the carbon scrubber. There's been maintenance expenses that come up with that. But what happens if for the first time we work with a vendor that's doing that, or a contractor that's doing that work? It might be considered routine and operational at some point after that initial thing. But if it's the first time that we've had a relationship or the first time that expense has shown up, I just was curious about your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I think, just to clarify, first time going with a specific vendor would not necessarily trigger anything. We could put something out to bid, janitorial services. Maybe we switch vendors. That in and of itself would not trigger a change in this policy to put it back in the consent agenda or regular agenda. But if it's the first time of a purchase that we haven't done before, we're going to go out and, procure, a new financial consulting contract that we've never done before. That's something that we would want to put on the agenda because it's not routine, it's not operational, it's not part of our day-to-day. It may get there, but it's not there the first time.
Perfect. And then third question, just in terms of, it mentions that will be provided in the second meeting of the month to the commission. Would that appear in just the packet that's available to the public? Would that just be sent to us directly? I'm just curious in terms of what like administration was thinking about how to report on that every second meeting.
The idea right now is to have that included as part of the city manager's report as kind of a sub item to that report. So then that way it would just be a consistent item that would appear publicly every time.
So it'd be like just like a ledger almost that appears in the packet, basically under that section?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Commissioner Decker.
Mayor, just a couple of questions. What is the dollar amount now that the city manager can approve?
Up to $100,000. Or is it up to 50? Sorry.
100 before it has.
You need up to 50.
100 before it has to go to the commission for approval. Bidding is above 50.
Correct. Sorry. Yeah. Different thresholds for different items.
So right now it's $100,000, correct?
Correct. Anything over $100,000 has to come for commission approval.
Okay. So I'm sorry, what are we changing on this? If he already has the authority to do $100,000?
It would be items over $100,000 that went through a sealed bid process that are routine and operational. So insurance policies, janitorial contract, things like that.
That's all for now.
Thank you, Commissioner Decker. Other questions? I've got a couple then. So we're not thinking about including any dollar limit in this whatsoever.
No.
No. Okay. Does seem like there should be some, I mean, I know you could start thinking, well, how much is routine and operational, if it's, some huge number, but on some ways, 13 million is a pretty big number, and that's pretty routine and operational, hauling sludge. So trying to figure out, that is helpful to see those things. I don't know if we got the right cap on it now, and I understand the routine nature of many things that we're going to do. But, so just for example, looking at tonight's consent agenda, would any of those items or all those items fall under this new policy? It wouldn't appear.
I don't believe any of the items tonight would have.
You don't think any of the items are what?
Would have tonight. I don't think any of the items that were presented tonight would have fallen under all four of those categories.
Mowing and trimming, we bid that out. That's pretty operational.
Oh, guess I missed that one. Sorry. I don't have my agenda in front of me right now.
Yeah, Mayor, I would say that would be one that, it was bid and it would be routine and operational. The other two are, one's a settlement and one's initiative fund, which requires commission.
Yeah, I get that. One thing I don't like is an idea of things being up for interpretation. Is that routine or is that not routine? What's operational exactly? So even though you might have absolute trust with the staff you're working with, things can be interpreted. If it feels a little loose around that, I'm just trying to figure out how do you put a little more framework around that? Yes, Commissioner Pradel.
If you didn't notice, that's kind of where I was going to. It's just that it feels a little murky, and I have full trust if you have that report, you can see, what was expended. But I think for me, I had some conversations with City Attorney Leal, and he didn't really stray me in one direction or the other, but his advice is that it seems like where you're coming from is that there needs to be some more clarity just with the consent agenda in general, right? Or what he viewed as my questions. And so I'm just wondering if there would be any appetite. I did check with City Manager Ritzma, but I definitely recognize the spirit of this, and I'm very supportive of being more efficient and that sort of thing. But I wonder if this might bring up an opportunity for us to maybe examine the consent agenda a little bit closer as maybe like a subgroup, or maybe an opportunity to work with City Attorney Leal just to examine, to come up with a little bit better parameters just for the consent agenda in general. Because I feel like periodically we've readjusted it, okay, let's do it if it's anything over $1 million, but what happens if it's over $1 million and it's routine and operational, I don't know. It just seems like that clarity would be helpful for the future, on more than just what we have here tonight, personally. But I wanted to just kind of gauge everybody's, appetite, or if there's any interest. If it's hey, this makes sense, let's do it. But I didn't want to just rubber stamp something without at least talking it over as a group and seeing what everybody else was feeling.
Commissioner Cooney?
I'm just a little uncomfortable about, we want to be as transparent as we can. And when this is pushed over and it's not discussed at all, or any opportunity to discuss it, it might be more efficient, but I'm afraid about losing the transparency, and that people would look at it as losing the transparency. I am concerned about that.
Commissioner Decker?
Thank you, Mayor. I do have to agree with Commissioner Cooney and Commissioner Pradel. I like to read, and I like to read these things on the consent agenda to know what we, at the point in time, are passing and paying for. And I do agree that, yes, right now our citizens are not allowed to pull anything off the consent agenda unless they talk to one of us about certain things. But then that's also taken away them to be able to say, hey, I have a question on this. Can I talk to my commissioner about it, and can I ask questions about that? I think that would be another thing that we would be taken away from the community if we did it that way. And personally, I like to see what's on here because I just do. I mean, it's nice to know what we're spending. We know what we're spending money on, but sometimes when you see it in black and white and you see other things, and as you're thinking about things, you may have different questions that come up as things are getting approved. And so, Commissioner Prado, I am all with you for having a subcommittee to probably think about how our consent agenda is set up and how it goes forward. Because if I do recall, when this consent agenda was put into place, I think it was, his name is escaping me right now. Yes, former Commissioner Urban was a way that we can go ahead and just do things that are normal business that we do all the time, but without having to have a discussion on all of them. And I think this also kind of brings me back to when we have our committee of the whole meeting. Committee of the whole meeting should be an opportunity for us to discuss everything that is on this consent agenda. So I would love to be on that committee with you to kind of talk about the consent agenda, because I do think we do need to start having more conversations within the committee of the whole on things that are on this consent agenda if we are also not allowing now the residents to pull them off.
Just a reminder, public comment does come before the consent agenda, and there's no prohibition on speaking on any consent agenda item by anyone here in the chambers. But I get it, that's not, yeah. So there is that opportunity.
That is true, but I also think that if we are going to change something like this, and again, when's the last time we really did review some of these things?
Yeah, I just didn't want to make it sound like no one ever had a chance to say anything about anything consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay.
Yeah, that was it. Commissioner Bradle.
Yeah, and I think sometimes as well, like when you think of, I pretty frequently will just like look back about what types of things should be on a consent agenda, non-controversial things. There have been things on the consent agenda where sometimes you didn't think were going to be controversial, but became controversial, right? Do not or should not require extensive discussion. Again, like sometimes we've had things on there where they become more intensive. And I think there have just been some times where I've just felt like things that ended up on the consent agenda shouldn't have been on the consent agenda because they were extraordinary new things or special initiatives we're doing or special things that we're funding that are one-off. And when I think about something that's on the consent agenda, I think about the things like what this is trying to cover administratively, like things that are just routine and operational, things that are just nobody really cares that much about, just business as usual. And so it just, processing it with the city attorney just really opened up my thought process to say, maybe this kind of step back concern has more to do with that we need to evaluate our consent agenda and how we're using it and set up some parameters that are very clear cut for the future. And maybe it would involve this still happening, but I had asked the city manager, I'm like, is there anything pressing that's requiring us to take action on this tonight? And there's no like major reason why this needs to happen tonight. It's not that we want to just sit on this for years and then never take any action, but it doesn't seem like it's something that we have to take action on tonight for some reason. So I just wonder if administration would be open to that possibility, and then the commission just to potentially study it a bit more. I don't know what that would look like or who that would be with, if it would be with the city attorney or with Steve or with you, Jim, or whoever that would be with, but I would appreciate that opportunity.
Yeah, I think that seems like a fine idea. Yeah. So there's already 2 volunteers for subcommittee. Is there a third? I mean,
Commissioner Wilson, I think, is volunteering.
Oh, yes. I saw his hand go up. I'd be happy to do it also then, to participate in that. That'd be helpful. Or, yeah,
I was
Commissioner
going to say,
Decker.
maybe we can, reach out to Commissioner Wilson. when
See if he's
back.
interested.
Yeah.
Okay, sure. And if he's not interested, then I'll be on the bench waiting to be called. Vice Mayor Hess.
Should there be a city manager, a financial?
Yeah, I was going to suggest. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Oh, whoever from admin wants to be part of it. There's no way we're going to just do this just as the commission. No. I don't think we need to act on that. Is everybody okay with that? We'll just kind of pull that together, see if Commissioner Wilson wants to participate. If he doesn't, I'm happy to. And kind of come back with some more thinking and recommendations. Manager Ritz.
Just so we're clear, I'm hearing, looking at the consent agenda, we talked about this purchasing policy. I heard Commissioner Decker talk about the committee of the whole meeting. So maybe we do need some clarification around what this group is going to be doing.
May I? I believe that this subcommittee should be looking into making a more streamlined approach to what constitutes ordinary business and daily business and routine business, what should and should not go onto the consent agenda. And again, you guys can jump into, and we're talking about a consent agenda. Consent agenda, I believe, also can work hand in hand with the cow. What things should be, if any, on the cow, so we can get back to what a cow was really meant to be, which is a discussion of all of us in the public eye, talking about things that we are approving and things within the city.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I mean, I think like the three things that you spelled out are pretty interrelated, but I think like the two main things is just really like purchasing policy and how it relates and interacts with the consent agenda. And, then, maybe there's just secondarily things like how the committee of the whole fits into that process through talking through it. But I mean, I don't know. I think that's
all right. Super. All right. Thank you for stepping up on that. Let me see here. We're not acting on it. Generally speaking, I guess there would be an opportunity for public comment on this. So I will offer that opportunity if anyone wants to comment on it.
Good evening, Jeff Messer, city resident. Yeah, I talked to Mayor Anderson before the meeting if this was going to be open up for public comment, because I wanted to comment on that. The CFO, Steve, kind of addressed my concern, which regarded section VB1 in the current agreement that says the city manager shall provide monthly to the city commission a list of all administratively approved contracts between $50,000 and $100,000. So he said that those are going to come back, well, depending on what the commission's going to do, but that those are going to come back to our agenda packets. But that's not actually being written into the policy, at least at this moment. I want to remind the commission that up until February 2019, there was a written city manager's report in the packet every month, the second meeting of every month. That included this administratively approved stuff. And so that's been gone for the past 5 years. So we can't, and the same city manager, we've had the same city manager since 2013, late 2013, I thought Jim started. So with this city manager, we've had this in the packet, it's disappeared, and we're being promised that it's going to come back. So while you're amending this policy, you may want to actually codify that and say that report must be in the city commission agendas. And I don't know if you remember, but I've actually mentioned this purchasing segment of the purchasing policy twice since 2019, asking for it to come back. So it's good to see that it may actually come back. I don't come to these meetings and never get success. It takes a number of years, but I keep asking for a number of things over a number of years, and eventually they get fixed, just like the sidewalk thing took 10 years. Thank you.
Thanks. Nice to have you back. Anyone else want to comment on this item? Okay. Well, now we are down to the agenda for commissioner comments. Anyone wants to lead off with commissioner comments this evening? Vice Mayor Hess.
I'll go. I was going to say just one thing, but I'm going to go make it two. The first time we heard from a citizen rather disparagingly that we're talking about a happy city. I I want to be very clear that the process that we had for bringing in Charles Montgomery, the author of the book Happy City, was more about our planning process and about how we plan for the future of our city, how we structure our planning, and it's not a perfect process, but it was helpful to have him here to talk about what it means to have infrastructure as a human need and to be able to create happiness and health in a city. So I kudos to Assistant City Manager Keck and City Planner Anderson for making that happen here in the city. On Martin Luther King Day, on the 20th of January, I and the mayor and Commissioner Cooney had the opportunity to attend the Western Michigan University's Office of Diversity and Inclusion, Lewis Walker Institute, Office of Athletics, and Office of the President event at Miller Auditorium in the evening. Bakari Sellers is an attorney, a CNN political commenter, and a politician, and he was speaking about our current state here in the United States. And he said one thing that I'll always remember, that we could choose chaos or we could choose community. I will say tonight, with all of the things that we are concerned about, that we're afraid of, that we're struggling with, that I choose community. And we have to as well, for our sanity, for our health, for the health of this community. We have been elected to oversee this community, and we will do that to the best of our ability. Let us choose love. Let us choose kindness. Let us choose grace and mercy moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Hess. Commissioner Cooney.
Thank you, Mayor. One of the things Charles Montgomery said on Friday night, he talked about Raj Chetty, who is the most important guy, I think, in the country, who's looking at success. How do people that are born into poverty move to success? And he said the importance, more and more, it's being clear that the environment in which a person grows up, if is that environment supportive and trying to give that person access to the supports that they need. So when we talk about city planning, it seems to me this is the most important thing. Are we creating an environment where where our young people can succeed? And when we hear about the homelessness and when we see them, and when we see our kids in the schools who are living in environments which give them very little chance of succeeding, that deeply affects all of us. We got people in our community now who are afraid. We got people in our community who are looking at losing their supports, and we have to deeply care about that. And we have to stand by them because, as the Vice Mayor said, we're a community. We have to care about each other. And we have to remember the dignity and worth of each person in our community and work toward making that real.
Thank you, Commissioner Cooney. Other comments from any commissioners? Anyone else? All right. Hey, I just wanted to say something. It's something that we don't, along some topics that we do hear over and over again, and maybe at some point, we don't answer them in the same way over and over again, but, and obviously it's a little distanced from that. We're talking about this at the end of the meeting, and the comments we hear sometimes are at the beginning of the meeting. But a couple things is that I do, there's kind of a representation that nobody cares at all about issues of flooding in the city of Kalamazoo, which is patently not the case. And I do want to say that, doing what we can do now and thinking about what we could do is something that I'm going to give all my colleagues here credit. Everybody cares about it, and our staff here at the city, think about and care about that on a regular basis. We do suffer from our geography, which is we are at a low point, and there are many, many areas in the city of Kalamazoo where swamp. I just finished building being the owner's rep for the new ISK urgent care building, and as soon as you start digging there, you see what was there before and what was there before that, because it's just fill upon fill as you dig down. And that's the challenging situation we're in the city of Kalamazoo. I know that Director Baker thinks about those sorts of things on a regular basis and does what he can. So it's not for lack of caring, I will say. It's some of the challenges that are, if we were to come up with some solutions, those numbers would probably dwarf the cost of what we're talking about with wastewater treatment tonight, probably vastly dwarf that cost. So that's unfortunate, but I recognize that, and that it's a challenge. The other thing, and I once again want to give credit to all the colleagues that I sit with out here, because, we certainly hear over again, and, I get it, it's a problem how the commission isn't doing enough maybe to addressing issues related to housing, affordable housing, people that are unhoused, that kind of thing. And I want to say that once again, this commission continues to have that as a focus and to think about what the city can do. And like it or not, there is no other entity, local public jurisdiction in the county of Kalamazoo that even comes close to investing the amount of resources in affordable housing to the city of Kalamazoo. And when we talked about the numbers which were being discussed here today, around between 1,700 and 1,800 young people, very unfortunate, those numbers came out of, this is what I want to remind, those are Kalamazoo County numbers, not City of Kalamazoo numbers, county-wide. We're one little space in the middle of the county, and those numbers include young people in every single one of the 9 school districts in Kalamazoo County. So when we're talking about those numbers and we're talking about where the school districts are, one school district, granted with the largest, number of young people who are unhoused, is, here represented in the city of Kalamazoo, but the other 8 are not. And, I chat with my friends in all the adjacent townships, and there are no townships that have the same approach to pilots that we do. There are no townships that are choosing to support the creation of affordable housing by granting, 30-year tax breaks and all the various things that happen in the city of Kalamazoo. And if we collected all those taxes, well, maybe that would pay for other good programs that we want to do, but we're not. We're not collecting those taxes to support the creation of affordable housing. Big contribution from the city into the county. It's not Kalamazoo Township, but in Kalamazoo County's motel project as well. So I get it. You can say the city's not doing enough, and maybe that's the case. But it's kind of an easy place to come here to say that to the city when this challenge is representative of the entire county. So I would encourage some effort to help other local jurisdictions, some of them that have actually a much larger tax base than the city of Kalamazoo does, as a matter of fact, to continue to address those issues. And I know this is the kind of thing people don't like to hear, but the facts are the facts. And I'd appreciate at least a recognition of that, if you'd be so kind. I love you, Kalamazoo. We are adjourned.
Mm-hmm.